Rangers. It's 2017 and they've rebooted Power Rangers. That's really cool. Or is it? So if you guys don't know, I'm actually a huge fan of Power Rangers. It was the first show that I watched as a kid that really kind of introduced me to superheroes and the superhero genre. I just loved it as a kid. It was really, you know, colorful because obviously it was Power Rangers, red, yellow, black, blue, pink, Green Ranger, then Green Ranger turns into White Ranger. It was a show that I really did enjoy watching as a kid, and I had to collect all the toys, and I watched all the Power Ranger seasons, including like stuff like Time Force, SPD. I watched it until Mystic Force. That's when I stopped watching it because that's kind of like when I started growing up and, you know, watching other mature things. But I always appreciated Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and when I heard that they were rebooting it, Mighty Morphin specifically, I was so excited. I remember the day where they released the Logan and the Power Rangers trailer. I was more excited for the Power Rangers trailer because there was more nostalgia for me because I've been watching Power Rangers as a kid. I've been wanting them to make a more serious and more contained Power Rangers movie for a very long time, budget-wise and tone-wise. So I was really wanting them to make a modern interpretation of the Power Rangers franchise. So did they succeed? Yes and no. Okay, I really liked this movie. I really did. I enjoyed the first 2/3 of the movie. The kids who are playing these new interpretations of the teenagers with attitude who are the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, I believe that these kids are like friends. Like, I bought that in this film. Like, it was really good acting. It was really good character development. It felt like these were actual kids in high school going through social problems, problems at home, and just, you know, it felt like these were actual characters who were going through teenage lives. Specifically the Blue Ranger, like, he is very socially impaired because he has some sort of autism. I think it might be Asperger's, which I really enjoyed in this film because I've never really heard of like a superhero with Asperger's or like a form of autism. So that was really interesting to see in this film, and he was very likable. It was a very likable Power Ranger, and it was, I'd say like he's my favorite Blue Ranger besides the original Blue Ranger from the Mighty Morphin series. The Red Ranger is pretty cool too. He's the leader. He's like, you know, trying to like get everyone on board, like, hey, there's this Rita Repulsa character coming, we need to like stop her, can we please work with Zordon and just like gain these powers and these morph suits. And you can tell, like, you know, the character himself, he's trying to redeem himself because he's kind of like in this bad situation at home with his father, and he's just trying to like kind of redeem himself as a person and like, you know, gain these kids' trust as a leader. The Black Power Ranger, he's just a bro. He's just a bro, but you know, he's got problems going on at home, so you kind of understand why he's being a bro. It's kind of like a safety mechanism, you know, he's just like being a bro just because he's dealing with stuff at, you know, home. So yeah, that was pretty cool. The Pink Ranger's backstory, where she's like a cheerleader and she's got cheerleader friends. Without going into spoilers, like, that's a very real situation that they provided her, like, backstory wise. Like, I can see that happening to a young girl in high school, and I was very surprised that they were mentioning that in a Power Rangers movie. Like, that's a really serious subject, and they don't really kind of, you know, give you straightforward as to what this subject is, but it's very heavily hinted, and it's like, oh, that's in a Power Rangers movie. That's really mature. The Yellow Ranger was kind of the ranger where I had a hard time following her at first, but then there's a campfire scene where they're all talking and, you know, she kind of reveals her backstory, and it's like, okay, you know what, I understand where you're coming from, actually. You're going through stuff at home. You've got some family problems. So when these characters get to know each other, you buy that they, you know, met each other and that they're friends. And you understand kind of why they're not friends at first, and then once the movie progresses, you know, it's totally believable of like them becoming friends because they get to know each other and their backstories. They're like, okay, so that's the reason why you are the way you are. So acting wise and the characters involved, I'd say is really the best part of the movie, and that pretty much is the best part of the movie because everything else is really kind of questionable. So I've noticed that other Power Rangers movies have this problem where there is a lack of Power Rangers. The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie had Power Rangers in the beginning of the movie, but after that, like the middle and maybe towards the end, like there's not really much Power Ranger action. It's only in the beginning. In that sequel, the Power Rangers Turbo movie, they don't turn into Power Rangers until like the ending of the movie as well. So I was really hoping, and I knew in the back of my mind they were gonna do this, I was really hoping that they would have full-on Power Ranger action in this film. It's only in the last 30 minutes of the movie, and this is a 2-hour-long movie, which really just was such a disappointment to me. And I understood they had to have an origin story. I totally got that, and I totally understood they had to have an origin story for these Power Rangers, for these kids, and how they came to be, them getting to know each other, and becoming a team as Power Rangers. Like, I totally understood that. However, it just felt like the pilot to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but lengthened into a 2-hour movie. But when the Power Ranger stuff happens, like, that's really, you know, it's pretty cool. It's like, it looks good for what it is, and it's Power Rangers, the modern day Power Rangers, which I really, really enjoyed. The combat looks really cool, but it's just so short. They're fighting the putty characters for like 3 minutes, and then they get into their Zords. So after that, when they get into their Zords, like, they take their masks off, and it's just them and the Zords for the majority of the movie. So there really isn't much martial arts in this movie whatsoever as well. It's just them in their suits for like 3 minutes, and it's like, okay, we've defeated the putty characters, let's get in the Zords. That's something that really disappointed me as well, and like I said, I wish there was more Power Ranger action in this movie. Another thing that I want to mention is they have no idea what they're trying to do in terms of tone for this movie. Like I said, the first 2/3 of the movie are actually like pretty serious. They're teenage, adult themed, they're in high school. There's actually a joke in the first 5 minutes of the movie where one of them makes a comment about jerking off a cow. That's in a PG-13 movie. They made a joke about jerking off a cow. So that gives you the extent of how mature and the kind of vibe that they're going for, this kind of high school maturity vibe. And that's present throughout the first 2/3 of this movie, is this kind of, you know, high school yet kind of adult theme to it. Kind of dark sometimes as well, especially when you learn about the backgrounds of these kids. It's really dark and very coming of age like. And then you can just tell that, like, after that 2/3 was done, somebody of the studio came in to the production and was like, listen, we got to make it somewhat nostalgic. So we're going to have to make it campy throughout this last third. And that's exactly what it was like. It was like the last third, even though we did get the suits and the Zords, it was very, very campy, and not in a good way, where it was almost like it was very comedic and almost like a parody. They even put the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers theme when they get into the Zords. And I get it, you kind of needed that because it's Power Rangers, but the tone that they were going for in the first 2/3 of the movie, it just didn't match up to when they put the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers theme in that last third. It didn't match up whatsoever. The tones of this movie are way off. They have no idea what they're trying to be, and as much as I was like, oh my god, they put the Go Go Power Rangers theme in this movie, I was like, I think they made a mistake. They should have totally left that out. Like I said, I think the studio got involved with the last portion of this film. It was like, hey, we got to make it somewhat like Power Rangers, and someone got involved. Someone wanted to put the theme inside the film and kind of ruin the tone a little bit. And I get it. There would have been people complaining, but I was so on board for how different this movie was in terms of it being somewhat serious and dark. I was really liking that, and they kind of just deserted that when it got to that maybe hour and 30-minute span. Speaking of being really corny, Elizabeth Banks as Rita Repulsa. I have nothing to say to that. That's just almost really comedic to me. That's just, watching that was, wow. That was a performance. And not just like a performance like, oh, she should get an Oscar. Like, no. Like, what was she thinking? Or what were they thinking? Was that her? Was that the script? What was that? Oh my god. Like I said, a good portion of the movie comes from the acting and the characters, and even the production. Like, sometimes the effects and CGI were kind of iffy, but it kind of worked for a Power Rangers movie. It really did. Where I really had a problem with this movie was the editing and the audio. There would sometimes be just editing that didn't really make any sense whatsoever, and there would be ADR that just didn't match up with the characters' lips and, you know, what they were saying visually, like their lip movements, and just what was coming out of their mouths ADR wise just was very awkward and did not fit well whatsoever. And I was like, I can't believe somebody approved this when releasing the film to the public. I was like, that's really kind of iffy ADR at some points. There's also some like really questionable sound effects. Like, I can't even really explain it. This is Alpha blinking. Let me just show you this clip. They actually added a cartoon blink from SpongeBob where Gary blinks. The editing was just really questionable at some points. Like, I don't know. I don't know who was in charge of editing. I don't know who was in charge of audio as well, or putting audio effects in the timeline whatsoever. I don't know who was a part of that whatsoever. Like, it was just really questionable at some points. You could tell, like, the production team was taking this movie seriously, even though it was Power Rangers. You could tell that the actors were taking this movie seriously, even though it was Power Rangers. But whoever was editing this movie was just like, oh, this is a Power Rangers movie. I can do whatever. I can add, like, cartoon sound effects. No, dude. They were going for a more serious take. You messed up. You put weird blinking sound effects in your film, and you put the Go Go Power Rangers theme song in a movie that's already trying to tell the audience that, hey, we're being serious here. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing, man? And oh my god, I have to mention this, and I wasn't really going to mention it because I don't really talk about marketing in movies whatsoever, but a lot of people have been talking about it, and after seeing the movie today, it is something that I have to talk about. There is an absurd amount of Krispy Kreme marketing in this movie. Like, it's so absurd that they try to tie it into the main plot of the movie, and it's just so ridiculous. And I can see this being a meme this coming Monday, when everyone's seen the movie by this weekend. I can see this being a meme. Like, Krispy Kreme is all over this film. And there's even a scene where Rita Repulsa, picture Elizabeth Banks as Rita Repulsa eating a donut. Let me say that again. Like, Rita Repulsa eating a donut. What the hell were they thinking? It's really almost as worse as IHOP in Man of Steel. That's really... Like, it's really as worse as that. It really is. It's like they say Krispy Kreme's like 10 to 20 times this movie. So guys, is the Power Rangers movie good or is it bad? It's okay. I didn't mind it whatsoever. I had a lot of nostalgic moments while watching this film. I really did enjoy the characters. I enjoyed how they interacted with each other, and I really did enjoy how they're making this into a modern interpretation of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and I like the idea that we're going to be getting sequels in the near future. I think there's like 5 or 6 more sequels planned out, and I like this universe that they are, you know, tackling and everything. I really do, and I want to see more. However, they got to approach it how they approached the first 2/3 of the film. They can't do it corny anymore because I think some people are going to get really pissed off. Like, it's just, it doesn't work. It doesn't work with like how you've established everything thus far. So if you're going to make a Power Rangers 2, you gotta go dark. You have got to go dark. You gotta be serious. Like, there gonna be some comedy in there, especially with the Blue Ranger, but it cannot be corny. It cannot. Like, if you want corniness, go watch the original series. But for a movie like this that's in 2017, and that's already kind of established this tone, you gotta go serious. That's my advice for this franchise and where it needs to go. It needs to go dark, man. It really does. So yes, guys, that was my review of Power Rangers. Comment down below what you thought of the movie. If you've seen it yet, like the video, share it, and please subscribe to PixelTalk if you haven't yet for more movie reviews, movie news, gaming content, and so on. Thank you guys so much. I am Corbin Stuckey, and this is PixelTalk.